I'm kind of blown away by the performance this mini PC's putting out. I can't believe that they were able to pack a 14-core CPU and an RTX 3080 in this tiny PC. Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at a very capable mini gaming PC. In fact, with the specs that this thing's rocking right now, it could very well be the most powerful mini PC in this form factor that we've taken a look at. And it's all really coming down to the fact that this compact PC has an i9 CPU with 14 cores, 20 threads, and an NVIDIA RTX 3080 GPU, all packed into this super small form factor. This is called the Tank 3, and it's coming to us from a company known as Acemagic. We've taken a look at a few of their other mini PCs on the market, but this is definitely going to take the cake when it comes to performance. Just giving it a look at those initial specs, this thing is going to be a powerhouse. In this video, we've got a lot to look at and test, but before we get started, I do want to mention that this video is brought to you by Vip-Urcdkey. I've actually been using this site for a couple years now. They do offer Steam keys, Origin, Uplay. They even offer Microsoft applications like Office, but the main reason that I use Vip-Urcdkey is for their Windows keys. Right now, their Windows 10 Pro OEM key is $19.84, but if you use code ETA at checkout, you can get 25% off. And another great thing about buying from here is they do accept PayPal. I just did this build here. I need to activate Windows. I'm going to head over to my updates and security. We're going to go to activation. As you can see, I've got Windows 10 Pro, but it's not activated. So I'm going to change product key. I'm going to paste it in here, choose next, choose activate, and Windows is now activated. We're ready to go. My warning is totally gone, and basically that's it. They'll email your code once your payment is processed, and that's basically it. If you're interested in picking up cheap Windows 10 keys for your new PC builds, I'll leave a link in the description. Okay, so the first thing you're going to notice here is the design. Definitely odd when it comes to these mini PCs, and it kind of looks like I just threw a couple prompts into an AI generator and came up with a cube-based PC. But to tell you the truth, I kind of like the design. Now, initially seeing it in images, I wasn't a big fan of it, but after getting it out of the box and realizing, how small it really is, it actually looks pretty good, and it's definitely a lot different from other mini PCs on the market. Inside of the box, along with the Tank 3, we also get an HDMI cable and our power supply. This is actually a 300-watt power supply, and I want to see how close we can get to that, given that we have an i9 and a 3080 here. Overall, I think it's a pretty cool design, and it's actually really easy to get in here and upgrade the RAM and storage. On this side, we've got a door. It also has a little latching system, so you're just going to go ahead and pull this off. We can access both of our M.2s and our Wi-Fi/Bluetooth module over on this side. And if you wanted to upgrade the RAM, basically same thing on this side, but we do have a little cooling fan here to keep that RAM nice and chilly. And just to give you a closer look, it is SODIMM RAM running in dual channel, and over here we've got both of those M.2 slots, so we can add extra storage. Taking a look at the I/O, up front here we've got two full-size USB 3.2 ports, full-size SD card reader, a 3.5mm audio jack, and Thunderbolt 4. This is 40 gig protocol, so we can get some really fast speeds. Moving around back, we've got another audio jack, 4 more USB 3.2 ports, 2 full-size HDMI ports, dual 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, and a display port. So in total, we can do 4 displays out the way it is right now. Got the dual HDMI, DisplayPort, and USB 4 up front. When it comes to the specs, they do offer this in a few different variants. You can opt to get a different CPU and GPU. You can go with the 12700H CPU, but with this, we have the i9 12900H, and that gives us 14 cores and 20 threads. We've got 6 performance cores up to 5 GHz and 8 efficiency cores up to 3.8. This PC does utilize SODIMM DDR5 RAM. I've got 32 gigs right now at 4800 megahertz. And of course, we've got that NVIDIA RTX 3080. Now, this is the laptop variant, but we do get 16 gigabytes of dedicated GDDR6 VRAM. And they also offer this with an RTX 3060 or the RTX 3070, but we've got the top of the line model here. We also have room in here for 2 M.2 NVMe SSDs. It's got Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.1, and it's running Windows 11 right out of the box. Now initially, when I first saw this PC, I thought that knob on the front was just going to be for aesthetics, but it's actually a functional performance knob. We've got 3 different modes here, so we can go to quiet mode. This is going to run the CPU at 25 watts. Right in the middle, the tank emblem turns green. This is going to be our balanced mode. The CPU is now running at 35 watts. And finally, performance mode. This is going to take the TDP up on that CPU to 65 watts, but remember, we've got an H variant here. So from Intel Tuning Utility, if you did want to go ahead and install it, you can take this on up if you wanted to. But in performance mode at 50 watts, I mean, this thing handles everything that I've thrown at it. It's definitely the most powerful mini PC in this form factor that we've taken a look at. Alright, so here we are. Been up and running for a little while. Everything's been working great. Got a bunch of games and benchmarks installed that we're going to be testing out. But there was one thing that I really wanted to find out, and that was really which GPU this is. Now, I know it's a laptop variant of that RTX 3080, but there are a few out there, and it really comes down to the TGP. There's an 80 watt up to 150 and a few in between there. But real quick, you can see we've got that 12900H, 32 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. We've still got access to those Intel Iris Xe graphics, but we're going to be using this 3080 here with 16 gigabytes of GDDR6. So there's a couple ways to go about this. Basically, what I'm going to do is just run a firmware test. This is just going to stress it out. I'm at 1440 right now. We're just going to do a 1080 test. And right over here from GPU-Z, it looks like this is going to be the 115 watt variant. So we've got a good little middle ground there. Like I mentioned, there's an 80 up to a 150. If this was a 150, it'd definitely perform a little better, but I still think this is going to handle AAA games at 1440p just fine. Now I want to move over to some benchmarks that I ran on the Tank 3, and the first one here is Geekbench 6, single core 2355, multi 13216. Remember, we are in performance mode for all of these tests, so that CPU is running at 65 watts. Next up, we've got some GPU benchmarks with 3D Mark. Firestrike coming in with a really nice 23,204. And the final one here is TimeSpy with the 10,351. Just judging by these synthetic benchmarks, this is going to be a great 1440p gaming machine. And even though we've got an RTX 3080, you got to keep in mind it's a laptop variant. It was a real cut down version when you compare it to the desktop variant. But yeah, let's get into some gaming and see what this thing can do. Here's Forza Horizon 5, 1440p Ultra, no resolution scale, and to tell you the truth, I probably could have taken this up to Extreme or 4K Ultra, because we got an average of 92 FPS out of this. Really great performance, looking awesome here on this little machine. God of War is another one I always like to test, and I actually expected a little more out of this, but you got to keep in mind we're not using DLSS or FSR. So we're at a native 1440p ultra settings, and we got an average of 71 FPS. Turning DLSS on, even to quality, will net us much more, and going to balance, I believe we could get this up into the 90s at 1440p. But I don't mind playing it like this, still looks great, and again, native 1440p. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, 1440p, very high, no resolution scale, and with this one, there's a lot going on right now. You'll see that FPS dip into the mid-60s, but overall, we did get an average of 78 FPS out of this, and it was fully playable. While playing it, didn't notice any kind of hitches or anything like that, so I think we're good to go. Spider-Man Remastered, and you'll get the same kind of performance with Spider-Man Miles Morales, but we're at 1440p, very high settings, no DLSS. We got an average of 121 FPS, and it looks great here. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind playing this on this machine at 4K high settings. I'm pretty sure we could go ahead and turn VSync on, lock it down at 60, and have a great time with Spider-Man. And the final game I wanted to test out was Cyberpunk 2077, 1440p, Ultra, no ray tracing. We got an average of 78 FPS. And taking DLSS up a little more would definitely help out. I believe at Ultra it does default to auto, so I'm not exactly sure what kind of scaling's going on right now. But since we're using an RTX card, I figured we'd go ahead and test out some ray tracing. So I just went to Ray Tracing Ultra here, 1440p, and you can see it really did fall on its face. Now at 1080, we can get over 60 with ray tracing at Ultra, but again, it does enable auto DLSS. Definitely impressed by the performance, but another thing I always like to test with these mini PCs is total system power consumption, and I can assure you this is pulling a lot more than other mini PCs we've taken a look at with APUs and iGPUs, because we've got a dedicated RTX 3080 and a 12th gen i9 CPU. But while I was doing my testing, I have this plugged into a kilowatt meter. Idle, we're at 23 watts, and all of these tests were done in performance mode. 1440p gaming average, 186 watts, and the maximum that I could get this to pull from the wall in my extreme test, which consists of maxing out that RTX 3080 and that i9 to 100%, 241 watts. And keep in mind, that's an extreme test, but yeah, it's definitely pulling a lot more power than other mini PCs, and for good reason. I mean, we're working with a lot more performance here. Okay, so first impressions. Personally, I do like the design. I think it looks pretty cool, and I do test a lot of mini PCs, so I see a lot of just plain Jane boxes. Seeing something totally different like this, kind of cyberpunk inspired, is really nice. Just a change up. Gaming performance is absolutely amazing, and I suspected it would be. I mean, we're working with some high-end parts here, but it would be nice if that RTX 3080 was like the 150 watt TGP part. That way we could get higher frame rates in those AAA games. But I'm not complaining. I mean, I think for the form factor here, this is definitely a really powerful mini PC. Prices on the higher end, but they do offer a few different variants. RTX 3060, 3070, and the 3080. I'll have at least one more coming up. I do want to tear this thing down, give you a look at the internals. Maybe we could do a little bit of overclocking on the CPU and the GPU. If that's something you're interested in, it'd be really cool if you could hit that like button and think about subscribing so you know when I post the next one. And if you're interested in learning a little more about the Acemagic TANK 3, I'll leave some links down below. But that's it for this one. Like always, thanks for watching.